Check one, two, three. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. My guest today is a production sound mixer and boom op based out of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and he is also the creator of Hi-to-Mic microphone concealers. Please welcome Eric Leek.
Hello, Michael. It's nice being on your show. I'm a real fan, so it's an honor to be with you in the show. And I like the diversity of all the people that come by.
Yeah, we've really been trying to, have a nice diverse group of people from all levels of production. So from just starting out all the way up to the veterans in the industry. So
yeah, and I noticed that there's also a difference between the people work in the US and work in Europe. So that's also nice to hear.
That is good. Let's talk about your experience during the COVID-19 pandemic. What have you been doing?
Well, actually, not much. My wife is Russian, and we were in Russia for her work. She's a writer, and she was for promotional work. We were in St. Petersburg, and at that time, my ticket got canceled. And from that time on, I stayed in Moscow until about beginning of June, and then I got back to Amsterdam on one of the first flights. When I got back to Amsterdam, the things are loosening up a bit, and the restaurants started to open again. And so there wasn't much different from the time that I left. So that was good. And business is starting up very slowly, and everyone is trying to find a way to work around the COVID, of course. There are all these protocols on how to use the hygiene standards on set, and the masks and the sanitizers. And I did some shooting already again, but the strange thing is, when you're on set, it's so hard to think of all these measures. And because when you're standing next to a cameraman where you always stand, like for the last 20 years, you're standing next to that camera at that position, it's so hard to step aside and think, oh, no. But yeah, it's good to have it in your mind, but it's very hard to practice all the measurements that people are proposing.
Now, how long were you in Russia?
3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how is Russia handling the pandemic?
Well, more or less the same as in the Netherlands. Stay at home, do nothing. And we had to wear masks and gloves in the supermarkets and all the public places. The funny thing is that one day they say, well, probably it's going to be until December, the whole self-isolation. And then 2 days later they say, oh no, tomorrow the cinemas are opening again and you can go to a restaurant. And so it's I think they managed quite well. It's more or less the same as the whole of Europe, and the numbers are going down also there. But it's a huge country, so I think 140 million people live there. So still they have like 5,000 cases a day. So that's quite a lot, but it's not better than anywhere else, I guess.
Wow. Well, let's talk a little bit about your production work that you do, as well as your gear that you use on set. So kind of walk us through what you have in your audio kit.
Well, usually I work out of the bag. I finished film school in '95. It's already last century. And I started out with a lot of feature films and series. And then I got children, and it was just too intense, leaving the house at 7:30, coming home at 9:30, and then when you have a day off, you have to either have a production meeting or have to do some equipment maintenance. So there wasn't much time for your family left. So then I decided to do a bit more smaller productions. And I decided to go to more commercial documentary style films. So I usually work out of the bag. And in my bag I have a Sonosax mixer. It's the Sonosax 4.2, SX42, the one with the 4 digital outs. As a recorder I have the SXR4. On a boom, I have a Panamic boom with a Rycote suspension, a small Rycote suspension with a CCM 41 and a CCM 8, the small Shups microphone, and I use them mainly. And sometimes when I have something that is in a really noisy situation, I have the Shure Samit on the boom. But I think it's a bit too. I like the openness of the 41 instead of the real sharp axis of the CMIT. Especially when you're doing documentary and you swing your boom, you really hear where you point your boom at with the CMIT. So I like the openness more. Wireless, I have Audio Limited 2040, the Mini TX and the normal TXs. And for microphones, I use COS 11 and DPA 4060 and 6060. Timecode wise, I have the Tentacle. I have the old ones. I have two old ones, and I have the ambient timecode, 1 nano, and dozens of the old big clunky Lockheeds. I started with the black one, then I got the green one, then I got the purple one. I have a red one. They each time they updated their versions with tri-level sync and bi-level sync, so I had to buy them all again. So that is the time code, and then I have when I work on the card, I have a audio development 146 table mixer, 8-channel in, 4-channel out table mixer.
Do you use any kind of camera hops?
Oh yeah, IFB. I use IFB Sennheiser G3. Because I noticed that with the 2040, I liked how they sound, but I really get into trouble sometimes because I travel a lot and shoot all around the world, as we probably, or most of us do. But I really have problems with frequency somewhere. I'm in the low 600s, and it's all been given away to the big telecom providers. And I'm thinking about getting new sets for the wireless, and then I'm maybe go to the Electrosonics or the Saxcom or. Well, I have to look into the Wizzies also, but it's difficult to make a decision, and because it's also quite an investment you do at that time, of course.
What audio bag do you like to use?
There is this English brand, it's called KTS, and I have it because when you're doing documentary, I would like to be as small as possible. Also with my suspension, I have the Rycote small ball gag with the 2 microphones in there, and people say, no, it's too small, and you get strange reflections in that. But the thing is, if you are doing documentary and you have this huge microphone hanging over you, and I think it's good to be as small as possible. And also with the KTS bag, it's really small. It's like you have the mixer, you have the recorder, and then you have a little pouch for your receivers, and that's it. So I like that. I think the main thing, people use a lot of the Orca. I think it's a little bit too big for me. Just run, and I like it to have it small. So it's KTS for me.
Okay. Now there's a lot of films and documentaries you've worked on, and a lot of them are in Dutch, so my pronunciation is not so good. But I was going to ask you about a few of them. One of them was called The Last Fight. It's a documentary you did about an MMA artist?
Yeah. That's a documentary I did like 2 years ago, and The Last Fight is it's a documentary about Marloes Koenen, and Marloes Koenen is one of the first female MMA fighters that was a real professional, and she was fighting for Bellator in the US. You have UFC and you have Bellator, and people probably know it if you're into fight sports, and she was around 29 and she wanted to quit. And we wanted to film her last fight, but the thing was, she wanted to end in style with being a champion, and so we got into the production thinking that she was going to win the last fight, but then she lost the more or less last fight, and then she thought, oh no, I'm not going to end with a loss. So then she planned another fight, and then her opponent was too heavy, so that was skipped. The fight was skipped, and then the last fight, the real last fight, she lost, and it was like such a dramatic film. But it was real fun to work on it. We've worked on it for 2 years, and we did it with the same crew, same director, same cameraman, and we had a real good relation with all the fighters and with Marloes, and it was really an interesting voyage you make with each other, and that was nice to do. And the good thing is that the director, he tried to make it something different than a normal documentary. So we asked Bruce Dern, the actor Bruce Dern, to do the voiceovers as him being an old fighter. So he tells what she's going to expect after when she quits, and then that's very, very original way to make a documentary.
Okay. Now, where was that filmed?
It was filmed in the Netherlands and in the US. Most fights were in the US, so then we did the training in the Netherlands. And then we flew into, we've been to Temecula, Alabama, somewhere in Alabama. We've been to Boise, all around, yeah.
That's interesting. So Bruce Dern was a fighter?
No, he wasn't a fighter. He's an actor, but he acted like the director, he wrote the voiceover like he was a fighter. So there was like narrative into the documentary. Because when you only look at the fighting, the risk is that the whole story is going to be a bit shallow, because it's not a sports program. You want to do something about how you cope with losses, how your identity is intertwined with the thing you do. Like, she is a fighter, but when she stops, what is she then? So, and he pointed that all out in the voiceover, and that was very interesting. And he has this really dark voice, and that was great, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Now, what was the miking setup on that?
Well, because Marloes was fighting, she didn't want to have a transmitter. And I didn't want to disturb her also when she was preparing for a fight. Because when we were in Amsterdam, she was all right, and she was very social and talkative. But when she was preparing for a fight, she didn't want to notice us around. So I couldn't give her a microphone or something. We had a good relationship with a trainer and with a partner who was always there. And I could give them a microphone. And what I did is I placed the microphone a little bit lower so that the distance from their mouth to the mouth of Marloes was more or less the same, so that you had equaling gain and it sounded the same. So that's how I worked my way around that. And of course, a lot of booming.
Okay, well, that's good. Now, let's see, there was another documentary you worked on. It was about the Dutch elderly and people that often get forgotten.
Yeah, that was what it was so nice. Was that it was a documentary, and we have for some bigger documentaries in the Netherlands, you get subsidized, and of course, documentary is very expensive to make, and especially in a small language area like the Netherlands, it's almost undoable to produce a documentary that has like 40 shooting days or something like that, or 30, but the government gives you subsidize these productions, and we did that. So we had all the time to find the right old people, and it was about being lonely, getting older. Well, they're not that mobile anymore, and the children die or just don't come anymore. People don't have any children. So it was about loneliness, and the thing was that the elderly people, they all said, no, I'm not lonely. I have my dog. I go to the supermarket every day. And if you film that, well, yeah, then they're not lonely. But if you have more time to follow the whole process, and you spend more time with them and speak to people around them, and then you really get this picture of a person that is saying to herself, I'm not lonely, and everything around her says, screams loneliness. And that was very touching documentary with that. Yeah.
Well, out of all the projects you've worked on so far, what has been your favorite?
Well, I just love my work. I don't have a favorite. No, if I dive into a project, it's like that is my favorite. That is my favorite project. And the funny thing is that I cannot take any distance from the project I'm doing. So when I do a production, I always think this is the best thing we ever did. And then other people said, well, it was okay. It was fantastic. Every production I like to get involved, and if you have like a nice group of people to work with and with an interesting subject, it's great to do. Obviously, there are some special things that you never forget. We have a Dutch astronaut. I understand in the US that's fairly common that there are astronauts, but in the Netherlands that is not that common. And when he got back from the ISS, he made a documentary because he saw the Earth from space, and he said, yeah, it's a beautiful Earth, but it's also very vulnerable. So let's go with a complete production crew to all these vulnerable places and shoot there. And then we went to the Pantanal in Brazil. We went to Komodo Islands in Indonesia, Greenland. We with a chopper on the glacier that sunk the Titanic, and these kind of things you just never forget. That's very special, very once in a lifetime experience, of course. And that's one of our big advantages of our work. I mean, if you go somewhere, you don't have to go there if there's nothing interesting to film. So you always go to interesting places. And if you have a nice crew and friendly people with you, then it's the best job there is.
That's good. Now, we were both having an espresso before we started our interview, and you said you had a story about espresso.
10 years ago, we had a Dutch director, and he was killed by a Muslim extremist. Maybe getting a bit too political to get in there, but he was killed. And he was quite a known director. And the Dutch producer, managed to make 3 of his films remade in the US. And one was directed by Steve Buscemi, one was directed by Stanley Tucci, and one was not directed by John Turturro, but John Turturro was involved in it. He was playing in it. I did the one with Stanley Tucci and with John Turturro. The film we shot with Stanley, there was in Belgium. He came to Europe, and there was a complete Belgian crew was there. So it was a home game for us, of course. But when we shot the film with John Turturro, we all go to New York and shoot it there. So we had a Dutch cameraman, a Dutch gaffer, and a Dutch soundman, and a Dutch producer. That was it. And we were shooting in this apartment near the Hudson River, and we would stay there for a week. And my cart was in the kitchen, and my boom-up was in the room. And so, but I had a stove next to me, and I had this little coffee percolator, and I made coffee for the gaffer, for the cameraman. Well, I knew that John was like, I don't know if he is Italian or he has Italian roots. I don't know that, but so I offered him an espresso. I said, "Oh, you want to have espresso?" Yeah, good. So he took the espresso. Oh, nice espresso. And at the end of the day, he came back to me and he said, "Yeah, can you make me some espresso for me?" I said, "Whoa, easy now." I said, "First the cameraman, then the gaffer, and then the acting personnel." I mean, that is how it goes on Dutch sets. And I said, "If you want to join our coffee club, then you have to bring some cake or cookies, of course." We went on a bit. I made him his coffee, and he went away. And then the American producer came up to me and he said, "You never talk to the talent like that. You never, ever talk to the talent like that." And I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, boy, I just did. I don't know what it is." So I thought, well, maybe because in the Netherlands, all the crews are quite horizontal. You don't have like a real hierarchy. Of course, there is hierarchy, but the way you communicate with each other is like a real horizontal. So I thought maybe it's completely different in the US. So maybe I crossed lines, and I thought, well, it's a good thing that I'm a Dutch sound guy, and he's not able to fire me or something. I'm part of the deal. Well, the day went on, and the next day started shooting, and I made my coffee. And guess who stood there with a little carrot cake next to the sound card? John Turturro, asking for his cappuccino or espresso. Yeah, that was great. So that was an interesting thing to see the difference in the in mentality. That the American producer said, "Well, as a sound guy, you cannot talk to the talent like that." And okay.
Now you were just joking around, right?
Yeah, I was just joking around, of course. Yeah. And I thought he knew that. He's not stupid. But it was just like the producer thought I was too free to the actor. I don't know what it was.
It is interesting. Over the years, I've worked with some producers and directors, and they don't speak to the actors realistically. You know, like we would talk, like, you know, we're miking talent up, we're doing all these things. And so we talk to them like people, you know, like a regular person. And some people are like, you know, when they're directing, "Oh, that was so good. You did such a good job," like they're a baby or something. And it's like, you don't talk to them. I mean, and most of the time the actor responds, you know, like, "Oh, thanks," you know, or whatever. But some people, it's so unrealistic, and they're so like, "Oh, that was so amazing. You should do this for a living." And like, "Oh, stop it."
Yeah. And the funny thing was with John, he was like very keen on the microphone where I placed it, and if you didn't see anything of the wire, but respecting each other in the way you do your job also makes that you respect each other as a person, and that was what I felt on the set, and felt the freedom to do something like this. But the American producer, it was so funny.
Interesting. Now, what has been your experience working with, say, American crews and directors versus in the Netherlands?
It's more strict in the US than in Europe. I don't have that much of an experience in the US, but the experience I have is that you have your department and that's it. For instance, there was I did a production, small commercial production in the US. It was in a staircase, and my boom op was downstairs, and I was upstairs, and that was before we had wireless boom. I wanted to hand him the cable for the multi-cable, and there was a best boy standing in front of me, and I asked him, "Can you get the cable to my boom op?" And he said, "You have your own assistants, haven't you?" And he just didn't want to do it. Yeah, of course, but you're here now. And he did it, but he was not. I didn't ask him the next time to do it. You know, it's clear. This is your job. This is their job, and you don't interfere with that. I don't know if that is something that is my mind, but the whole thing of responsibility, who takes responsibility, that is also a thing in the US. We did a shot in the apartment where we filmed in, and we also had to do one shot that was looking outside of the window, but we had to do that in Brooklyn because the apartment we were shooting on was on the ground floor, and it had to be on the second floor. So our department got in, and they had to rebuild a little bit the same thing, the same window as we had in the apartment, of course. And it took ages and ages, and there were 5 men, our department were in that apartment, and we were thinking, what are they doing? What are they doing? Light was falling, we had to go to another location, all these kind of things. We got in and we asked, well, what are you guys doing? And they said, yeah, we're rebuilding the apartment. Yeah, but we only need one little piece of the window. We don't need anything else. Yes, sure, but what if you want to move the camera a meter backwards? But I don't want to pull the camera a meter backwards. It's like, this is the shot I need, as the cameraman said. And they completely rebuilt the thing that we had the opportunity to put the camera a meter back, because they didn't want to risk it, that we said, oh no, this is not the right shot, we want to stand here, and that it was not in order. And it's difficult for people to say, okay, I stand for this, and if it's not good, then it's not good. And that's different in the US, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, and it depends on the crew, you know. Some you know, it comes from the top, you know. And yeah, I think we've all had ones that are very complex when it comes to the hierarchy of the team.
Yeah.
And then other ones that are really, you know, friendly.
Yeah, and I do think that in friendly situations, better things evolve.
That is true. For some of our listeners that may not be familiar with Hide-A-Mic, kind of tell us about that.
Well, actually, Hide-A-Mic is a microphone concealer solution where you can place miniature microphones easily under your clothing. It's a little cage. It's not like a life-changing idea or something, but I will get into how it all started. When I got from Film Academy, I had the luck to start immediately with a documentary series. It was aired every week, 50 minutes, so we had to shoot a lot, and we had a lot of different locations and different characters. I had to change microphones a lot, sometimes maybe 30 times a day, and I had to do it quickly, and the only things that were around then were the Rycote stickies, undercover, overcover, and the LMC. But LMC wasn't not that big at that time in Europe. That was a real American brand, and there were a few, but you never knew how you should use that. And I always found it strange that there was nothing in the market that like created a little cage around the microphone that just prevented anything to touch the actual microphone. Well, obviously there are more concealers in the market now. I mean, Bubblebee is doing a great job with theirs, and you have the Ursa thing, of course. But when I started, there was only the Hide-A-Mic thing. I thought, well, maybe it's a good idea because you don't have one position to place a microphone. You want the best place is here, of course, but sometimes you have to do it in a tie. You want to have it on the bra. You want to have it in a shirt. So I thought, well, maybe I have to design 4 different concealers that, well, covers 80% of all the situations you encounter. So that if you have a Hide-A-Mic set, you might be covered for everything you find in the field. Well, that worked out. People like the concept. I got a lot of positive feedback, and we're working on new products. We have different microphones now, and yeah, that's a good thing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you make them. You have a version for DPAs and for COS 11s, for Sennheiser.
Yeah, I have a version for the COS 11, and we started with COS 11 also now with soft material, because the idea was that the material was hard and smooth so that everything runs off easily. But we got some requests from the market if we could make them in a soft material. We have them for COS 11, DPA 4060 series, so it's 4063, 4062, 4071. Then for the DPA 6060, and we have for Sennheiser MKE2, there's not the big one, but a smaller one, the professional one. The 4060 also fits the Countryman B3.
Okay. Now, yeah, I've been using them, and I like them a lot. I really like the bra clip, and I like the tie concealer.
Yeah, I use the T-shirt holder quite a lot, because it's a very simple shape. It's small, and just slide it over, and you place it anywhere with the right coat sticky. And the good thing about the sticky, it's drop shaped a bit, so you combine the concealer and the microphone together. You glue them together as one set with the sticky, and then you can place it anywhere, like here on a shirt or behind the logo, or yeah, you put it anywhere. I like that one.
Yeah, I've used that one as well. It's like I'll use some like Joe's sticky stuff, and I'll put that, and then right behind some buttons, or on the So that's great. Well, what are some of the other products that Hydemic has as well?
Well, we have the B-Flex. I like that one a lot. And that's a silicone concealer. It's also drop shaped, and that is to place directly to the body. Sometimes you have these real tight shirts or real light shirts like silk or something where you cannot put anything on the shirt itself. Then you want to go for the directly on the skin. I prefer to do it on the clothing, because especially for people that are not used to be mic'd up, it's a bit intrusive to put it on the skin. But sometimes you cannot get away without it. Well, the B-Flex it's like a drop shape, and the shape of the microphone is in the B-Flex, and it's silicone, and you put it right on the plexus. We have special pads for that stick to the B-Flex and skin friendly to the body. So that is one thing that we have. We just launched some sort of Joe Sticky stuff, but then in a smaller container. The thing was, I like Joe Sticky stuff, but it's a huge tin, and it's shiny, and the lid is not screwable. So it ended up in my backpack everywhere. It was Joe Sticky stuff. So we made a smaller version of that, but it's more or less the same. Then we have hair clips. It's an old trick in theater. You have a hair clip, and you put a little elastic band over it, and you can use to place the microphone in the hair, especially when you have big hair or heavy clothing with costume drama or something. Then you might want to go for the hair. So we have sets for that, and we're working on new things. But it's I used to be very frank with sharing knowledge, but I noticed that there are people in the market that think, that is a good idea. I might as well do that myself.
That is, that's how it is, right?
People can do what they want. I mean, I don't forbid people to make concealers or.
Now, what other expendables do you like to use besides the Hydemic stuff?
What I use a lot is Rycote, the stickies. I still stick to the stickies. They're a bit thicker, and I like it to use sometimes in a tie without a mount. If you use a Rycote sticky and you put it in the tie and you push a little bit, it creates a little shape, and you can place the microphone against the sticky. That's a good idea. That I like that a lot. Sometimes I use the bumblebee, especially the wind mounts, the wind bubbles. They're actually quite good, and they're piece of fur. That's also quite good. I use that also sometimes. For straps, I use Ursa a lot, like thigh straps, waist straps, these kind of things. And then I use a lot of Tisa camera tape. Do you know the Tisa camera tape?
No.
I think it's a German brand, but I don't know. It's quite thick tape, nylonish, and the thing is when it heats up a little bit, when it gets warm, it gets stickier. So I use that a lot. And transport and all these kind of things, the regular stuff. In sweaty conditions, I also use the skin tag. Do you know that? The adhesive base that you can use. You just spray it on or you wipe it on, and then you get this nice little base where you can put your adhesive on.
I haven't tried that before.
Yeah, you have to spray on. I think that's Brava spray. And then you have the skin tag. And the skin tag is like the heavy version, and the Brava, with skin tag you really can get rid of chest hair. That it really creates a layer of almost waxy substance over the chest hair. But if you don't have any chest hair, then you can use the Brava spray. Well, you can buy it online. It's like Amazon or
Okay. Now you said you went to film school. Did you always want to do sound?
yeah, yeah. When I was 6 or 7, I had a friend. When we played outside, we always played football or something like that. But when we got inside, I always wanted to play with my dad's recorder and make radio programs. But he didn't want to do it. But I forced him every time. They're like, yeah, let's do this. We had several scenarios, and then let's do this scenario again. And then we played it over and over and over. So I recorded that, and I don't know what it was. I just liked it. And when I got older, I did some DJing, did some front of house mixing for bands, these kind of things. And then after high school, I did a course with cultural work. So I thought, you can be in a youth home and be there and get paid for it. I thought that was a great thing to do. And then I had to go for an internship, and I did on the audiovisual department of a institution for mentally handicapped. And then I thought, okay, you can make a living out of it. That's good. And then I had to do that another year, and then I applied for film school, and then I got into film school, and now I teach on the film school. I do the microphone concealing course every year, 3 or 4 days, and then I show the second years how to hide the microphones.
Oh, that's great. And a product to go with it.
Well, with these kind of things, I always include every brand. There's not one solution in the world. It's not that Hide the Mic does everything. It's just you need several options to choose from. If you only have a paperclip and a tape, you can do it with a paperclip and a tape. Sometimes you need this concealer, sometimes you need that concealer. So I have all the brands in my bag, and I just let them work and see what's best. And we're all grown-ups. People can decide for themselves what they want.
I appreciate that. It's a good philosophy because, one thing doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to switch to something else and you have to try something else. So that's good. A lot of people say, nope, only use my product. But I appreciate the fact that you, even yourself, you try.
No, but some people are quite stubborn in that. I don't use hard concealers. If it works, it works. If you can do it with a bottle, do it with a bottle,
That's true. Now, you were talking about having a recorder, your father's recorder. When I was growing up, my dad had a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and I remember, slowing it down, and we would, pitch our voices down really low, and then we would just try all these different things, and I had the best time doing that. It was like some of my early years, and I'd ask him. He had all this music on reel-to-reel, and so I'd say, hey, is there one that we can record on? And he would find one and say, you can record over this and things like that. So early years, I had no idea, and it was this reel-to-reel, it's a big, I'm going to say, I think it was a Panasonic, but it was like a 4-track reel-to-reel, and that thing weighed a ton. But we carried it around. I took it to friends' house. We recorded all the time. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Still, I'm doing this for 25 years now, but still being wearing headphones and listening and being in this own realm there, I still like it. It's very nice material to work with, sound still. Some people like visual images, but I like the sound.
Yes, and so do most of our listeners.
Yes, I hope so.
Well, okay, what was your worst on-set experience?
I did a documentary series on food, and we always had a very simple question in that program, like how is it possible that mandarins in a can don't have a skin anymore? And then we ended up in China in some factory to film that. And there was one episode about salmon, because salmon sushi isn't a Japanese invention, but it's a Norwegian invention to sell salmon to the Japanese. So, and we wanted to film that. And we had to go all up north in Norway. It was at Tromsø. I think it's the most northern part of Norway. And we only had one day. We stayed there for one night. So we flew in, stayed there for a night, shoot, and fly back. So they asked us, can you fly only with carry-on luggage? Okay, cool. I make this small bag and mixer bag. Put my boom in with the tripod in the back. When I was at home, I put everything on the table, made my set. I have to take this, I have to take that. And on the second flight from Oslo to Tromsø, I was starting to doubt. Like, I think I forgot something. Oh no. Oh yeah, I forgot the microphones, the lav mics. I just let them on on my table. So I had everything besides the lav mics. But I knew we had to film around these basins where you can only walk on a very narrow ledge. But I was start to worry because we were in the most northern part of the world. Where do I get like 4-pin limo cos 11 here? Nowhere. So we landed and I immediately opened the bag and they were at home. So I forgot my lav mics. But luckily there is a production center there from the Norwegian television. And in 25 minutes I had 3 Electrosonics brand new transmitters that I can use. And that was the worst experience I had probably.
It's like, some situations just work out like that and some never do.
Yeah. When I noticed that the microphones weren't there, I thought, okay, this is not going to work this time. Yeah, this is the last time I worked for this show, but it wasn't true. It wasn't true.
Man. Well, if you could give some recommendations for people just getting started in production sound, what would you tell them?
Whoa. Well, several things. Try to find a mentor. Try to find someone that is seasoned, that knows how it goes, and not that you have to work with him all the time, but someone just explaining what people expect from you. Be eager. Make sure you use the best equipment there is always, because if you work with sound, I really think that you have to have the best. If you work with sound every day, you should have the best equipment there is. You should not think, it's too expensive. I mean, you would just want to have the best stuff. I also think that people that are on set, you have set people, people that belong on a set. Even though it's hard to learn, I guess. It's something that you have or you don't have. There was a guy that I met and he was a gaffer, but when I met him he was 16 or 17 and you just felt he belongs on a set. And now he's a big cameraman in the Netherlands, and it's very hard to. I think if people think that is the way they should go, they will go that way.
Mm. Now, did you have any mentors growing up?
Yes, not that many actually. That's why I say that I mentor some people now with the classes on Film Academy, and sometimes I coach a final movie on the Film Academy. When you graduate, you have to make a movie, of course, and then I coach the sound department. So then I'm the mentor. But when I started, I missed it sometimes. I mean, it was like I just did what I thought was right, but it would have been great if I had someone that I can discuss things with. And I still do that. What I really appreciate about the whole sound community here in the Netherlands is that we like to share things with each other. If I have a problem with something, I will call a colleague of mine that is also a sound mixer and I say, Anton, how are you going to do that? And then he will just say, or how much do you charge for something like this? And it's, I do this. So maybe you should do the same so that we're not competing against each other. So that's what I like. People like to share in our business.
Back in the day, there wasn't a lot of sharing, it seems like. But I feel like this modern times, everybody's willing. There's enough work to go around, and everybody's sharing techniques and skills and their experience. So I'm so glad that people do that now.
And I also think that things like social media and also these kind of podcasts makes that you know people, and that is easier to share things with people you know than with people you don't know.
And you also have an offer for the listeners from Hi to Mike.
Yeah. And so honored to be on the podcast. I would like to offer 5 sets for free. So if you go to the website, www.highthemike.com, and you just order in the website, the first 5 purchases of a Hi to Mike set are for free. So the regular Hi to Mike sets are for cos 11, for DPA or Countryman. They are for free. So the first that log in and put the coupon code LSP100 at the checkout area, then you get a set for free, including shipping. So how's that?
That's awesome. Thanks for offering that to the listeners.
Yeah, sure.
And it's hightomike.com?
Hightomike.com, yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great. So if people wanted to reach out and find out more about you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is on Facebook, the Hi to Mike Facebook page, or drop me an email at eric@highthemike.com, and Eric is with a C.
All right, great. All right, I want to say thanks to Eric Leek for being on the show today.
Thank you very much, Michael. It was a real pleasure talking with you.
And I'd like to say thanks to everyone for listening. If you have questions or would like us to discuss a particular topic, email us at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. We're available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.